Hello everyone and welcome to Season 4 HGC qualifiers for Australia and New Zealand. And we're into week 3 and we're into the first round of the playoffs, and we're going to have Nomia up against Crimson. So Nomia will have their full roster. They were without one of their players last week and ended up falling in the finals against Darksided. But this week they have their full lineup again and looking to bounce back from what they probably would have seen as a rather disappointing result from the previous week. But on the other side, Crimson, who have consistently, throughout this season, have jumped up to be the consistent number 3 team in the region. So very interested to see how they do, and interested to see how they progress throughout the rest of the season, as they've shown some pretty good performances, essentially coming out of nowhere at the start of this season. So, as I mentioned, this first game of this best of 3 is going to be Infernal Shrines, and now we just have to wait for these first bans to come through. And we are on the live patch with Garage all enabled and all the fancy jazz that goes along with it. So there are the oil nerfs. She doesn't have that, the blinding light, well, not the blinding light, the blinding light where she gets the cooldown reduction at 7. So she can't just spam out those heals, and it's a little bit harder to work around in a composition. She's still quite strong, but requires a little bit more work to get the same amount of value as she used to. So it's just going to mean that first ban is going to go towards the Stukov. The Tastar is going to remain on the ban list. He's still a very powerful pick and just facilitates a lot of compositions. And like Greymane is going to be that first pickup on the side of Crimson. Such a strong, flexible pick, very high into a draft, and does very well on this map. When it comes to the Shrine phase, we see very often Greymanes just clear it out so efficiently, and also can teamfight incredibly well. He's kind of the jack of all trades when it comes to a draft, and it doesn't give anything away on the side of Crimson. And now I just have to wait and see what Nomia do respond with. Coming into this patch, Uther has taken a little bit of a nerf. He gives a little bit less armor with his healing, his devotion passive. So we'll have to see how the priorities go towards that. Rhaegar has popped up quite a bit when it comes to the healers, and Garrosh is also making a big splash so soon after his entry into the Nexus. So there's 2 quite strong picks on the side of Nomia, and already very aggressive, wanting to really dictate a lot of play around these rather narrow areas when it comes to these shrines, and also just in lane, just throwing people around with the ground break into the Wrecking Ball. You can catch out so many heroes unawares and make it really awkward for your opponents to try and deal with it. But they do have a rather decent tool with dealing with that armor that Garage does end up getting. That Tychus with the percentage damage is just going to just shred through him without too much of a problem. And that Dahaka also picked up, going to be applying a lot of map-wide pressure that can be a little bit obnoxious to deal with if Nomia don't end up going for something to try and deal with it in some way or another. So now we are going to be getting into the second round of bans, and just looking at what's on the side of Crimson, you probably want to be taking off a warrior, a frontliner, and that's what they do. They take away that Arthas, who can be really obnoxious for someone like a Garrosh or any kind of melee assassin that Nomia might want to be going for, say something like an Illidan, or even like Malthael, which we've been seeing Nomia pick up from time to time. And also just looking at what Crimson have, they already have essentially their 2 DPS locked in, and a pseudo tank in the Dahaka, who yes, he's a warrior, but he doesn't necessarily want to be on the front line. So it's more than natural to just go towards banning that additional frontliner that Crimson will more than likely be wanting, rather than a support where the pool is still rather open. And likewise on the other side, Crimson will be taking away the Li Ming, not wanting to allow that through onto the side of Nomia. Could do a lot of work against the Greymane, or even the Tychus, or even the Dahaka. Just keeping out of their range and just return firing can be really hard for some of those heroes to deal with. And now on to the next couple of picks for Nomia. We have to see what they go with. They still need a lot of their DPS to come in, and whether or not they want to have another supplementary tank to go alongside that Garrosh in the front line, or whether or not they want to maybe pick up something, some kind of specialist to try and keep these lanes under control, to try and contest that Dahaka when it comes to the global pressure. But we'll just have to wait and see what they end up going for. Is they are using a lot of their time, and yeah, we are on the new patch, so very interested to see how these teams are actually approaching and what they are looking at to be their high priority heroes. And wow, that's their DPS locked in. They have the Gul'dan and also the Cassia. So the Cassia will be quite effective at dealing with those auto attackers in the Tychus, and also the Greymane, should he get should he be diving into the thick of it, those blinding lights will really hurt his chances in these fights. And the Gul'dan, well, they got the triple lock combination, and that's a lot of wave clear on the side of Nomia just with that Gul'dan. And the Cassia isn't too bad with the Fen, but kind of has to put herself into somewhat precarious positions to get that wave clear. But the Gul'dan has very safe wave clear, can do a significant amount of damage once he gets either the Fell Flame or the Corruption stacking at level 1. But on the other side, the ETC, the Malfurion, brilliant tools to lock down that Cassia. Cassia can be very strong and really hard to deal with because of her avoidance passive, where when she's moving, she gets all that armor and can be hard to lock down. But when you have such easy ways to do as such with the EDC, the power slide into the roots from the Malfurion, that Cassia is not going to be moving, and she will have none of that defensive utility or defensive stats, and she can go down incredibly quickly. So I really do like those pickups towards the end of the draft from Crimson, and now we just have to wait and see what Nomia want to finish it off with. Do they want to go with maybe a second support? Do they want to shore up that front line, maybe put in something like a Sonya, or even do they want something to try and deal with that ETC, get some additional crowd control to maybe interrupt a potential mosh pit? Or there's so many ways that Nomia could go with this last pick. It's very interesting to see where they go with it. It is going to be that Sonya, so they will have a solo laner of their own to try and match up against that Dahaka. And to be honest, that matchup ended up just being a bit of a sustained matchup where, sure, the Dahaka can clear waves quite efficiently and has a lot of sustain in his kit. Sonya does as well, but if it comes down to just straight up brawling, Sonya can be really hard to deal with. And should that Sonya get onto those back lines, if we do see that Poison Spear coming in at level 7, she can essentially become a bit of an assassin herself, while also being rather troubling to deal with if you don't have the lockdown at the right times. But we are getting into the game. It is game 1 of this round 1 of week 3 playoffs for the HDC qualifiers here in ANZ. It is Nomia up against Crimson. So Nomia, coming into the season, they have had a couple of roster changes, as we can see on the screen. No longer having Robodoba or Arcana, as they have moved on Robodoba over to Darksided, and Arcana will eventually be moving over to Europe to play over there. And so we do have Ryu and Penta, the new guys on the team, and they're going to be on that front line. Penta on that Garrosh, and Sonya is going to be played by Ryu. And on the other side, Crimson, they came in quite unknown during the off-season tournament that GameStar ran, and they ended up taking the whole thing, surprising pretty much everyone. But we are on to, there we go, onto the map. We are onto Infernal Shrines on the blue. It is Nomia. We have Fat94 on the Cassia, Vanilla on Rhaegar, Ryu on Sonya, Penta is on the Garrosh, and John is going to be on Gul'dan. Whereas on the red side, we have Crimson. We have Altivian on the Greymane, the Shadow coming in to play the Malfurion, Leica on the ETC, Jesmez on Dahaka, and Azure is on the Tychus. Alright, so into the level 1. Usually we don't see too much happen, just a bit of trading, and maybe just we see some heroes get caught out. But a lot of the time it is just trying to clear out those first waves as efficiently as possible, so you can move on and apply pressure elsewhere. Just get back to your lanes and just keep the experience game going. But we have a rather interesting setup coming out from Crimson. Wanted to catch out anyone in rotation, but Nomia having absolutely none of it. They're trying to be very careful. They know that they cannot see anyone. They have to be very cautious of where Crimson are. They do now have vision of the rest of Crimson, and they are just going to be clearing out those waves rather efficiently. One thing to note, we do have the Gul'dan picking up the Echo Corruption. We have been seeing that making a bit of a resurgence, as we do have an attempted gank on the bottom side, as Vanilla is now in a very precarious position. He's going to get hit with the face melt. Leica is going to go with the power slide. The damage is coming through as Vanilla takes a lot of damage, but Leica is going to get thrown in towards the towers, taking a lot of them. And Fat94 is going to be able to finish him off, and that is going to be first blood going over to Nomia. So nice turnaround on that attempted gank onto the Rexar, but well, not the Rexar, the Rhaegar, the other orc. There's 3 orcs in here, and I chose one that wasn't even in the game. Never mind. As we in the top side, it is going to be just this trading back and forth, trading of waves. But as I mentioned, Ryu on this Sonya should have better dueling capabilities, but the Dahaga will be fine, and it should be a little bit more useful when it comes to trying to make plays elsewhere around the map. But this 4-stack of Nomia is in a pretty good position. They have about a half a level lead, and they're going to be in a pretty good position to just have the inside, well actually I was going to say they'll have the inside track coming in to this point, but Ryu is going to get caught out by the rotation. But all it's going to be is a whole bunch of damage, and he's going to be forced away, and at least a tap, as the rest of Nomia, they're not bothering with this first shrine. A lot of what we've been seeing lately over the past couple of weeks, and even just the past couple of months on this map throughout the world, is that those first couple of punishes aren't that important. You can afford to give it up, and it's just you try and get as many advantages elsewhere around the map, and that is what we're seeing here from Nomia. They're going to grab this bottom camp. They're trying to just apply as much pressure, try to take as many towers, but meanwhile on the top side, Ryu getting caught out on the top side. The 4-man from Crimson are going to pick him off, and that is going to allow them to push so much harder with this Punisher. They don't actually, they're not even close to it really, but it is going to force another rotation up from Nomia. John is going to be up here on the Gul'dan, so he will have at least a reasonable amount of wave clear and should force away Crimson a little bit and just back to the point. But still, it is going to be rather obnoxious as Leica goes diving in, and the nice lockdown combination is going to allow Ultimin to just dive through, and that is going to be another kill. I think John was just caught a little bit off guard there with the crowd surf, allowing ETC to go straight through that gate. Really caught John out off guard and just was not prepared for that ETC to come flying through the tower there. And that is going to be yet another kill. But on the bottom side, Nomia are pushing down this fort. That is going to be a nice pickup for them. And they look like they are going to be able to get to level 7 first, and should be able to defend this Punisher without too much of a problem. Sure, that gate is down, as are those 2 towers, so it could be a little bit dangerous for anyone to be sticking around that point. But as the Punisher has been picked up by Crimson, we do have the members of Nomia starting to come up to pose some kind of defense. Penta getting hit as a nice cleanse does keep him alive, or keep him safe. I do believe that it was invulnerable. Yeah, he used that himself, so he has his own self cleanse, which was perfectly timed to deny any kind of engage on top of the Punisher. And in the end, all it was just a whole bunch of damage and tower shots being drained, but nothing really gained by Crimson for taking that Punisher, whereas they did lose a bottom fort, and they are losing out around the map as Leica is going to get thrown into the tower, overextended, and that is going to be another kill. Trying to just play aggressive, not knowing where the rest of Nomia was, and he's going to get punished for that, and this is going to allow Nomia to push forward. They do have the heals, and with this 4-man here, they're just going to keep on applying the pressure. The Shadow can only do so much. He has not gone for the Moonfire build. He will have the slowing Moonfire with the hindering one at 7, but he is not going to be able to clear that out as efficiently, and this is going to allow Nomia to just push in a couple of extra towers, just further that experience lead, and just accelerate their race to level 10, where they can really just take control of this game. They should have it in time for the next shrine, and if they manage to get that at the perfect time and get it before Crimson are able to get even close to it, they can just control so much of how that next shrine will play. As we did have Crimson take their own mercenary camp. This will be applying pressure and just force a rotation out of Nomia, but they actually, let me just, that one. That's the one. As a lockdown goes down onto Vanilla, he's actually going to get thrown out by Penta, and very nicely done there, as the healing is going to come out. There's a lot of good healing coming out from Nomia, and that is going to keep them alive. Well, absolutely incredible play there from Penta on that garage, using the toss ally into the fray, throwing his ally back into safety, and that could have been incredibly dangerous position for Nomia to be in, being down a member, as they do lock down as a nice wall. As a nice torque comes out from the garage, they will manage to pick up one. They pick up a second, as now none of them are even close to going down, as it was the Warlord's challenge. I just completely forgot the name of it. He is still a very new hero, and I think Crimson are suffering a little bit because it's, as I mentioned, it's a new hero. Sure, they've been playing with and against it on the ladder and on, I'm guessing in scrims, but it is still a very new thing to try and play around, and this is allowing Sonya to just solo take this shrine. Sure, I think Gul'dan will be coming down to help out, or at least hold some of the waves, but Nomia with this level advantage, just pushing the tempo. They are going to be taking this top fort, and now we do have Crimson. They are going to start moving towards the bottom side. They do get the tongue drag onto the Sonya. He will get locked down. There's absolutely nothing he can do there. He is going to go down, and only 5 more Guardians left needed for Nomia, and I'm not sure if there's really much that can be done by Crimson to prevent this from being taken, as ETC does use the mosh pit, but he's in a really weird position. He gets taken down immediately. Jesmens gets thrown behind the tower, and he's going to fall as well. So that's the front line down for Crimson. Nomia do come along and finish up the rest of the Guardians. They will grab their Punisher, and even they just get 3 free kills for it at the same time, and they are now in incredible position. They are almost up to level 13. They're going to push this Mortar Punisher down the bottom side of the map. Sure, it's not the strongest of Punisher. Probably would have wanted something like an Arcane or even a Frozen, but you just got to take what you can get, and they are in a pretty good position. They have the level 13 now. They do have that talent tier advantage. The level lead is incredible, as well as they do try and get the Groundbreaker into the Wrecking Ball onto the ETC, knowing that he doesn't have that mosh pit up for quite some time. They're rather safe to throw him around, but it is just going to be the front towers, and they are just going to back away. Already in a really good position. They don't need to overextend when they don't necessarily have the tools. Well, I guess they did have the tools, but they just didn't want to try and overextend for a reasonably low percentage play. So they're just going to go back, take a lot of the mercenaries around the map. They pick up the opposing side's Khazra camp. They're going to start pushing on this middle fort, which hasn't taken a lot of damage. A lot of the play has been around the top and bottom sides of the map, as a nice flip goes in onto Altivian. He gets taken very low, as a nice Wallet's challenge is going to bring him back into the fray, and they take down the Greymane. Absolutely nothing that can be done by Crimson to help prevent that one, as this is just going to end up being yet another fort going to the side of Nomia, and they are in complete control of this game, and a lot of it has to go on the back of Penta on this garage, just controlling these fights so well and just forcing the members of Crimson into really unfavorable positions. Yeah, Leica has been overextending himself to try and get some good ganks going, but the positioning of Penta and the rest of Nomia have been pretty good and they've been taking advantage of the sometimes less than optimal positioning from Crimson to make the most of it. So they will be backing away with this. I believe they're just waiting for the next shrine phase to come up, where they can just play around the map so much better. And Jesmez is on this Dahaka, trying to get as much done on the global side of things, trying to get as much experience that they so desperately need. They're just not able to make the most of the side of Crimson, and yeah, it's a bit of a tough position. If the Dahaka tries to go solo against this Sonya, it's just going to get completely blasted by the level lead and talent advantage by Nomia, and if tries to group up and fight, they are going to remain behind in EXP, and it's going to be very hard for them to actually get those team fights to go their way. Yeah, they have some pretty good tools in chunking down that garage on the front line, but with that armor, it is still quite hard to deal with, and with that, the healing and the assistance from the rest of the team of Nomia, they are just not able to bust through that front line all that efficiently. But they are making the right decision. They are not going to try and contest that shrine. They are just going to try and push down some of these towers, try to get some of that standing XP into their favor, try and get as much as they can before this Punisher starts pushing down their base. It is going to be a frozen one, and already the members of Nomia are pushing in onto these towers, while Ryu on the top side is just forcing Jesmez to be around, just try and make it as hard as possible for him to deal with this Shaman campers. Here comes this Punisher. They are doing a decent amount of damage down onto Leica. He's forced all the way back. Have to be very careful. Yes, he does have that mosh pit, but is in not a very good state health-wise. He is getting his health back thanks to the tap, but already that keep has fallen, and it looks like they want to start working on this core. They have taken a little bit of damage. Just the Tigers in this Thor is doing a lot of work, and it is going to force away Nomia, as they are going to be very much satisfied with that keep. They're going to start moving around the map, just pick up all those extra towers, all that extra experience, and try and force Crimson into making a mistake. It's very almost vintage Nomia, just not overextending yourselves, just try and wait, just play patiently and wait for your opponents to make those mistakes, those game-ending mistakes, as they do get the lockdown onto the Leica, but don't get that wrecking ball that could have been devastating should EDC manage to get a good mosh pit off that. But we are going to get a quick pause. But just looking at the state of the game so far, Nomia in an incredible position right now, just applying so much pressure, and it's very hard for Leica to actually get in there to try and make one of those game-changing mosh pits. We had so much damage coming out of John and Fat 94. It's really hard for the ETC to get in there and really survive long enough to get a good mosh pit. We've only seen one mosh pit this entire game, and he wasn't able to get anyone out of it, and he just ended up dying throughout its duration, and just hasn't really had the most value out of that hero. And it's just been a little bit hard for the Crimson front line to really get in a good position to punch the back line of Nomia. And yeah, we got some nice ganks early on, but in the end, the experience of Nomia is starting to show through. They were not too worried with those early punches. They instead decided to play for the map. They just took down some early objectives, some early towers, some forts, and have just snowballed that experience advantage. And it's been very hard for Crimson to try and make their way back into the game. And it looks like we're just going to be waiting for the next Punisher, as Crimson are just trying to claw their way back into it, but so much is being taken off the board by Nomia, and there's still a full level lead until Crimson can make it to level 16, as they do get the taunt down onto ETC. He has absolutely no chance to get that mosh pit off, as he gets absolutely demolished, and this could very well just be a second keep going over, as the Horrify is going to be used onto the Grey Main, but gets no follow-up. So a wasted cooldown there, but nice amount of damage coming up from that Echoed Corruption, doing a lot of work on the Gul'dan, as right now without that ETC on the front line, it's going to be very hard for Crimson to hold off this attack on the core. The Thor has been popped. They have to make something happen now. They're doing a lot of damage to Penta, as there's quite a few members who are dropping quite low on the side of Nomia. They are being forced away just a little bit, as Azure on the Thor is doing everything he can to force away the members of Nomia, but already a lot of damage has been done to the structures. We already have the middle keep. The bottom keep has fallen as well, and with this shrine appearing on the top side of the map, this could very well just be the tool that Nomia will use to bust down the rest of Crimson's base, and then onto the core itself. Already been dropped down to 81%, took a little bit of damage, and it looks like Crimson have realized that now is pretty much now or never at this point. They don't have the tools to play around the map. They can't effectively play around the map as they would want to. And Nomia are actually playing it rather cautiously. They're not going for the camp or for the shrine right away. They're going for their own mercenary camp. They want something else to be pushing alongside it. And now with this, now they're going to start working their way onto the camp. As I said it again, it's going to be the shrine, but now they have some pushing pressure that will force the rest of Crimson into some rather awkward positions. We do have all 5 members here from Nomia, and they are already working on the point, and we're trying to have a good engagement coming out from the members of Crimson. They do go in. The mosh pit does not go off as the Horrify is going to be used, as the Dahaka is absolutely shredded. Penta is going to sustain himself just enough, as Malfune is going to drop, as Azure is going to get a lot of damage down onto the garage, but it's just not nearly enough. And now the mosh pit does finally come out. There's just no follow-up there, as the Tyke is taking so much damage. Yeah, he has that, Thor has that 25 armor, but he just does not have the rest of the team there to help him out. And now we have the chasing down. Altivian is the last man alive, and it looks like this is just going to be a game, as no one on the side of Nomia ended up falling in that fight, as John is going to get thrown into the fight, as the Corruption is just going to blast down that Greymane, and this is just way too much for Crimson to handle, and that is going to be game 1 going over to Nomia.